Welcome to Pathetic, the podcast, where we come to you each week and just talk to you kind of like we're hanging out in your backyard having a beer while we can hear the burgers sizzling and just having a whole bunch of fun. I'm here with my co-host today, Mikey C. Mikey, how are you?
Ted, I got to tell you, we were talking about this before we started taping here, but when you came up to me and said, let's do a podcast together, when I was thinking about what the podcast would be, I was thinking about days like today. I am all kinds of jacked up today and ready to go.
Nice.
Jeff, how are we doing today?
I mean, you can't ask for a better day in sports to do a podcast, right? And I was joking around with you guys before we came on the show. The half-hour program can easily turn into an hour and a half to 2 hours today. So we'll definitely try to condense it and get to as much as we can. But yeah, it's been a wild day to say the least.
Well, before we get started, I do want to mention that for those of you who are regulars watching our show, thank you so much for your loyalty. The best thing you can do for us is to tell your friends, your family, anybody who you think would enjoy this. Just say, hey, give them a listen. You can subscribe, you can like. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you have a great time. I know we're always having a great time. And also want to shout out to our producer, James DeBenedetto, who's put together some pretty cool stuff for us, and we're very appreciative of that. So before we get to the NFL stuff, Mike, I wanted to touch on spring training injuries because we've talked over the past few weeks about a couple of Mets and a couple of Yankees that we thought were really instrumental if we were going to have a good year. And it seems that some of those plans are kind of blowing up a little bit. Jeff, you brought up Louis Hill. And I think we knew last week on our show that he is now gone for like 3 months. Right?
That's a rough one. And, you know, I'm not going to paint a picture with sunshine and rainbows about Gerrit Cole because the reality is it sucks, right? It's difficult to justify being content with losing your race. But with that said, there's a couple of really important things to note here, right? Number one, Aaron Boone has proved time and time again that he handles damage control about as good as any manager in the league, right? He shuffles the deck. He plugs and plays brilliantly. So I'm comfortable with Boone handling this situation. And number two, you know, turn the clock back to last year, right? Gerrit Cole missed the beginning of the season. And then fast forward to the day he took his first start. I think it was June, like the middle of June, if I remember. The Yankees were 51-24 without him.
Yeah.
And when he came back, the Yankees finished the season under 500. And I share that with you, not to say that the Yankees are better off without Cole. We know that's not the case. But it's really just to calm the Yankee fans down a little bit and tell you the season's not over, right? The Yankees are still a top team in the American League. The difference is now it's going to be scrappy, right? And then the Max Fried signing, that actually ended up being critical. Right, because I think Cashman did this by design. He knows, you know, Gerrit Cole's getting up there in age, and you know he has a ton of innings under his belt, and you know the Max Fried signing, Mike, really ended up being a great ace insurance policy if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we can't start the podcast all sunshine and rainbows, all excited about free agency here. We have to start with the downside of things with the Cole injury. But you took the words right out of my mouth, Jeff. When it comes to the way Cole pitched last year, you're telling me a guy was 8-5 with a 3.41 ERA. Now, granted, he was hurt for part of the year, and like you said, we did phenomenal without him. Obviously, would I love to have Gerrit Cole in our starting rotation? Of course you would. Why would you say you wouldn't? But to think, as you said, that the season is over just because we lost the ace, I think you have at least one or two other guys who could easily slot in and be your stopper and be your guy who can who have experience in the playoffs, who have experience on winning teams, who can be your stopper if you need to be. Because that's really what Gerrit Cole was last year that we're going to miss, is he was the stopper. When you got to the point where you needed a win, you lost a couple of games in a row, you had a Gerrit Cole start, he'd give you 7 innings, he'd let you stay in the game and let the offense do its thing. So I think that's something that you're going to need to look for whoever that person is going to be who's slotted into that spot. Has to be able to do that and be your stopper when you're on a 3 or 4 game losing streak before that turns into a 8 or 9 game losing streak and you're falling out of it from there.
If you guys get good starting pitching out of Stroman and Rodon, I think that by the time Heel comes back, I think you'll be in a good position, and then you'll probably be coming up on the All-Star on the trade deadline break, where I think they may make a deal, some sort of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Cole's gone for the year. I don't. I mean, they're waiting for a second opinion. It doesn't sound good. So
No, I think they got it. I think
they
it's
got
official.
the second opinion, and I think he's having the surgery tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So
yeah.
All right. So you really got to tread water till Heel gets back. So I listen. I am not a big Cashman fan. Not at all. I detest him as a general manager. As a person, he's a pretty cool guy.
Well, that's because he gave you bunny ears in the dugout, so now he's your best friend.
He's my boy. But I'm sure he'll do something that'll work. And listen, the American League is very competitive, and I don't think anybody's going to steamroll over the Yankees. I think
that's right.
There's not one team there that's going to steamroll over anybody. I don't think at this point. If the Yankees were fully healthy, I think they could have been doing the steamrolling.
I think so, and I think that's the one concern I have with the Yankees losing Cole, or really any starting pitcher for that matter, is I think the Yankees are going to be a team that, even before all the injuries, they were going to win 95 to 98 games, and they were all going to be low scoring.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think the offense is going to be a juggernaut, but the starting pitching was obviously fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think they would have had these low scoring, scrappy, like they had. They don't have a huge offensive firepower, but they have guys that hit well in the clutch.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the major concern. But, my hat is hung on the fact that Aaron Boone has been here so many times and has proven time and time again he can handle this. So is it concerning? Sure. I mean, of course it is. Is it catastrophic? It's really not. I don't believe it is.
We'll try to do the best we can, and hopefully get everybody on the same page. And hey, we're the Yankees, so nobody's crying for us, and we'll do what we got to do.
Don't be making fun of my manager now.
Yeah.
I know he sounds like Kermit the Frog. This is a 6-year-old joke, Uncle Ted, but we know it is true.
Here. And then the Mets, of course, right as they start talking so much about on SNY and the other MLB networks that this is the year that Francisco Alvarez has to really come out and do his thing, and he's looking better at the plate and everything. And now he's out 6 to 8 weeks with a hamate bone in his wrist. He didn't get hit. How the hell do you break a hamate bone and you haven't even gotten hit by a ball?
I don't even know what a hammock bone is. I got to look that up.
Well, that's all. Here's my other question: what did Giancarlo Stanton do after the World Series to get tennis elbow in both his elbows?
I hope it was playing tennis and it wasn't something stupid.
I'm not even going to go into some of the things that I was thinking about, but
right.
I just, but listen, thank God the baseball season is so long.
Yeah.
That if you just are not horrific, you're always going to be somewhere on the periphery, especially with the wild card teams, and, it's just, it'll work out. That's all I can say is it'll work out. And if it doesn't, it'll be like every other year, Yeah. So Mike, are you optimistic the Yankees can tread water until they get like Heel back, especially Heel?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm going to look at where we are on that May 16th, 17th, and 18th series. Home when the Juan Soto makes his triumphant return to Yankee Stadium on May 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'm curious to see where we are there. Looking at the schedule now, there's really not a lot of teams that are competitive that you're going to be competitive with. Before then, you're playing the Diamondbacks, the Brewers, the Pirates, the Tigers.
Yeah.
San Francisco is going to be tough. Kansas City, Tampa, Cleveland, Toronto, Baltimore, Tampa. So it's like there's not a lot. There's a chance for us to get fat before we get to the part of the schedule where you're playing Houston, you're playing the Mets, you're playing the Padres, you're playing the Phillies. Boston, maybe. I don't know if they're going to be there or not, but
nobody stands out. Nobody jumps off the page, and I think the AL is going to be a scrappy year for all the teams. There's no one that's going to. Now, listen, you never know. Something, a team can pop out of nowhere and be a juggernaut. But if I had to predict, just looking at the landscape of every team in the AL. I think it's going to be the scrappy teams just at the end. I think it's going to be within a couple of games between a bunch of teams. So, and I actually thought with the Yankees before the injuries, I actually thought they were the juggernaut of that league.
Absolutely.
I'm not like I don't think they're better than the Dodgers or a lot of other teams in the NL, but compared to the American League, they were at the top. Now they're kind of level with these other teams. So that's what happens.
But there's still, I think there's still in a position where you're definitely still thinking playoffs for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So 100%. Yeah.
We just recently went through the NHL trade deadline, and I know a lot of people don't talk about hockey. Okay, Mike and I are huge hockey fans, and in this case, we're on separate ends of the spectrum. He's a Rangers fan. I'm a Devils fan. Mike, I just want to tell you something. I know that Jack Hughes is on long-term IR for the rest of the year. I know that Jonas Siegenthaler, one of our top defensemen, is out until at least the playoffs, if God willing we get to the playoffs. Dougie Hamilton is out right now, maybe for a month. You're the GM of the Devils. You're in that third spot, and you're only about 4 points ahead of the last wild card team. And you essentially do nothing at the trade deadline. Nothing. And remember, Jeff, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you put guys on long-term IR, their money that they're owed for the rest of the year comes off the cap. So teams play with that. They put guys on long-term IR, they sign a big money guy, and then on the first day of the playoffs, they say, hey, look, I'm back. And they've gamed the system.
Yeah.
And Fitzgerald did nothing. And I'm going to say this right now today on March 10th. If the Devils do not make the playoffs, if they fall out, I want Fitzgerald fired. I want him out. Not Sheldon Keefe. I love him as the coach. I want Fitzgerald out. Get out.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a spot where you've got a better goaltending than what you've got the last couple of years. You've gotten a point where you're built up a nice cushion of points already. You have 34 wins already in the season.
Right.
Yes, you had two guys who are hurt, who are probably going to take you into the playoffs and be your starting, your guys that you're going to be going to in the playoffs. But to sit there and do nothing, I mean, the Rangers are not in the playoffs, and it looked bad the last couple of nights, but we won't get into that right now. But when you look at what they did, Chris Drury said, you know what? We've played well the last couple of months. I'm willing to do some things and add a couple of extra pieces that might be the difference between us getting into the playoffs, us maybe winning a round if we're playing the right team.
Yeah.
Because I got to tell you, no one in the East really scares me. I mean, Florida might scare me at some point when they get everyone healthy.
Yeah.
Kachuk back, and you got Marchand now on that team. So, they obviously scare me because they're the defending champs, and they are, have been there and know what they're doing. But does Washington really scare you? I know Ovechkin.
He does, but they're still really good.
I know, but in the playoffs, they just don't scare me.
I get that.
They don't concern me.
Florida scares me. That's the only team. I agree with you.
Florida's the only team that would really concern me, because Toronto, is going to choke every single year.
Yes.
Tampa's not as good as they've been. I don't think they're going to be there. So when you look at it, you're looking at Florida, Washington, and then you're looking at one of the other teams in the Metro, whether that's Carolina, the Devils, the Rangers. Columbus is looking better. So whoever that third team is has got a good chance, I think, to really do at least win one round and maybe win two
Yeah,
and get to the conference finals, and then you never know what happens. So
I agree.
Yeah, hockey is one of the best playoff sports to watch too.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just the intensity. But let me ask you this, Uncle Ted, because I know you're concerned about the Devils. Obviously, what would you say the odds are that they make the playoffs and have success? Well, let's start with making the playoffs first, and then if they get there, having success.
I think they have about a 65% chance at this point of making the playoffs. Success, maybe they win one round. I don't honestly, without Jack Hughes, I don't see them going far. Their only shot right now is that I know Fitzgerald is trying very hard to sign this, I think it's Arturi Grillschek, who is a Russian. They drafted him like 4 years ago, and he elected at that time, he was very young, to keep playing in the KHL in Russia. So he's playing against men every night. And he wants to come to the NHL, and they're trying to pull him out of the KHL, which the KHL said they would let him go. If we can get him, he is a point-a-game guy. But again, you're putting basically a rookie into the lineup. You can't expect him to be Jack Hughes. So I don't, if we make the playoffs, great. I don't anticipate us going further than maybe one round. If we win one round, I'll be very surprised. I just don't think that. And listen, I love Markstrom as a goalie, but if you're not going to score any goals, Markstrom is not the guy that's going to stand on his head like Marty Brodeur did, or like Lundqvist used to stand on his head. I think Shesterkin can do that. He hasn't done it as much this year, but I'd like to get into the playoffs. I'm tired of not. I just got bad news this week with St. Peter's College. They're the defending MAC champions, and they're not in the MAC tournament because they only select the top 10, and we had a crappy year. So now I'm sitting around with my 2022 or 2021 Sweet 8, Lead 8 shirt on, basically doing nothing.
Well, listen, you can always root for my alma mater. St. John's is in it. So, that's what's cool about college, right? We can all kind of get behind. There's no like true allegiance really, like there is with the Giants and the Jets. But with
Mikey's,
yeah, is he?
Give him your college team, and then I want to say one thing.
So I have two because I went to two different colleges for school. So I did my first 3 semesters at the University of South Carolina. Go Gamecocks. They had a terrible year in basketball. Last year they made the tournament and I lost one game, I think, in the entire conference schedule. This year in the SEC, they only won 2 games in the entire season. They were, I think, 11-2 before conference play start, and they're going to finish the year at 12-19. So not exactly the year you want. But my other team, and stay tuned later for the bonus pick in the Mushes segment, is the Manhattan Jaspers. I did graduate from there. I am a proud Jasper alumni. So they play in the first round of the MAC tournament against Iona in the quarterfinals. So spoiler alert on the bonus pick, but it's not going to be Iona, I'll tell you that.
One of the few times I root for Manhattan. Because I think Mikey and I, there's 3 teams we root against very hard. The Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Iona Gales. For sure.
I would throw the Philadelphia Flyers in there as well,
That
I
too,
think.
yeah.
So,
yeah. But, well, there's our hockey rant. I know a lot of people probably paused it when we were talking about hockey. But,
yep, there goes Jeff.
Jeff's
back. Jeff's back.
I'm out.
So
I'm sitting here. I was like the Mike Francesa, falling asleep the whole time. Watched it.
So today, as Mike teased earlier, today is a huge day if you are an NFL fan. Whether the team had one win last year or you're coming off the Super Bowl, the first day of legal tampering, which makes no sense. Just Just make it the day. For Christ. The NFL makes it so that every single day they are relevant, right? It's crazy. There's never,
100%.
there's never a day the NFL doesn't have anything scheduled. But today, Mikey and I are used to, because I think over the last 12 years, we've won 12 consecutive off seasons. I mean, between people talking about us doing stupid stuff. But Mikey, let's start with Jeff on this, because Jeff is a New York Football Giants fan. And there's a lot of stuff that they need to do. There's some stuff they have done. Jeff, clue us in on what they've done so far.
Yeah. So first of all, the fact that they brought Darius Slayton back, I thought was massive. He's not a number one receiver. He's not a number two. He's probably a number three, but the guy's a pro, right? He's been with the Giants since day one. He's a good vet to have in that locker room. So I thought that was massive. But I got to tell you guys, and we'll get into the Jets because I love the Justin Fields pick, and we'll talk about that. But now that kind of reverts my attention back to the Giants because right now, boys, the quarterback pool is getting shallow. And they have to sign, let me say it again, have to sign Aaron Rodgers for a year or even two if you're competing with the Steelers. And, people listening, maybe even you guys might be saying, well, why? He's old. He's a distraction on McAfee. I don't care. I really don't. And he is a perfect bridge quarterback for one of these quarterbacks in the draft. Because the quarterbacks in the draft, which the Giants will get 100%, one of them, they need a year to watch from the bench. And
Yeah.
I know they're the only girls on the dance floor right now, so they might be the focal point. But in an above average draft class, they're late first, dare I say maybe second round talent. And by the way, let's not forget, Dable and Shane have to win this year.
Yeah.
Which means it's imperative that they sign a veteran. So if they don't get Rodgers, my question would be, what's the plan B, right? Are they going to roll the dice with a rookie that's being completely overvalued because of the competition in the draft or lack thereof? There's nobody available, right? You want Russell Wilson? I certainly don't. They have to get this deal done somehow, some way. And otherwise, look, you're running into the risk of, throwing an unprepared, below average to average rookie into the Lions den against the toughest schedule in the league on a team that won 3 games last year. They have to get Aaron Rodgers come hell or high water. It has to happen. I don't want to see it happen tomorrow. Otherwise, I don't know what they do. I don't know what the next move would be.
I agree. I think I would love to see him with Dable, the quarterback whisperer, with Aaron Rodgers, putting their heads together, coming up with some fun stuff to run with neighbors, grabbing another wide receiver for somewhere out there, get a nice number 2. I think you would have to at least put them at maybe fighting with Washington for second in that division, with Aaron Rodgers and a couple of other tweaks to that lineup. You're certainly going to put them ahead of Dallas, and I think you can certainly put them in the conversation to be fighting for second place in that division and fighting for a wild card spot with the right moves with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback.
I'll tell you this. I think whether they get Aaron Rodgers or they get Russell Wilson or they get Carson Wentz or Marcus Mariota, I think the best they should hope for is to just show improvement so that Mara doesn't fire them, because with the moves that the Commanders have made, I mean, they just got Larry Tunsil today, in a big trade. They've added a lot to this team, and people don't want to admit the Commanders are the number 2 team by a long margin in that division. And I'm not saying this to troll the Giants at all. But I think here's a problem, and I've said this time and time again with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he wants to be on the Giants, because if you're Aaron Rodgers and you've got 1 or 2 years left, and you say, all right, what spot gives me the best chance of winning? You're not picking the Giants. You're not. Now, all his spots are drying up. His last spot is Pittsburgh. Yeah. And honestly, if Pittsburgh and the money's not going to matter. If the the money might not even be too close. The Giants might offer more. But I think that he's made so much money. He's already shown us all that money isn't his driver. His driver is his head. And I'm also of the belief that if he goes to Pittsburgh, I think he could do a much better job than he would with the Giants. Now, that's not to say that the Giants are just stinking, but I think the Giants are in a spot where they're trying to build this team back together. Here's the other thing. Let's say you sign Aaron Rodgers, you draft Cam Ward, okay? Week 9, you're 4-5, okay? Which honestly, that it's better than you've been. At some points I would kill for the Jets to be 4-5, but then you say to Rodgers, okay, we're going to sit you down because we think Cam is ready. Now, Mike and I saw it last year. Rodgers wouldn't sit down with a sprained ankle, with a hamstring pull, with a groin problem, with an arm problem. You couldn't get him out of the lineup.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a problem.
Well, the reason why I don't think it would be a problem is because if the Giants are mathematically in it, and if they're mathematically in it, that means Rodgers is playing relatively well. Even if Cam Ward is technically ready, they're still going to ride with Rodgers for the rest of the year because he still gives them the best chance to win, hypothetically, if he's playing well. So I think the only way that Cam Ward, let's say he's the guy, or even Shedeur Sanders, who I don't want, but let's just say it's one of these guys, the only way Rodgers gets benched is if he gets hurt to where he can't play, or the Giants are 0-6 and they're basically done. So I don't see Dable or Shane coming to Rodgers, who's, let's say he's having a good year, and saying, listen, the kid's ready, you got to sit down. I think because they have to win. Again, they can't risk having a decent start, then putting a rookie in and then losing. So I don't see that being a problem. But again, just back to what you said, Uncle Ted, about the Steelers, you're right. Why the hell would Rodgers turn the Steelers down for the Giants? The only thing I will say, and Aaron Rodgers he's definitely spiteful. I think we know that. That's his personality. He may want to say, you know what? I'm pissed off with the Jets. I'm going to play for the hometown rival with Malik Neighbors, with Darius Slayton now again, Wan'Dale Robinson. In my opinion, a good coach, an offensive guy. I can have success here. I'm going to stick it to the Jets and win with the Jets.
I could definitely see that.
That could be running through his head.
Yep.
It's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this guy, he's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. You don't know what he's thinking, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if that's going through his head.
And it's great for this podcast because one of us is going to have egg on our faces. It's either going to be the Jets for ruining Aaron Rodgers, or it's going to be the Giants for saying you saw what he did with the Jets and then end up with the Giants and you still went for him. So it's great for this podcast if he gets here. So that's kind of why I'm rooting for him to end up with the Giants as opposed to the Steelers, because it's going to be great material for this podcast.
No question.
So I mean, before we get to let's get to the Jets. Justin Fields.
Yeah,
Justin Fields, Mike. I'm happy about that.
I am too.
I'm happy.
I gotta tell you, you didn't have to spend a single draft pick,
right?
And you have a guy who, arguably last year, could have stayed with the Steelers, and I think they would have been a playoff team had Justin Fields been there and they hadn't messed around with Russell Wilson and done everything that they did there. I don't know what Pittsburgh was thinking with that.
I don't know.
I would love to give this guy a shot, and he's going to get a shot with this offense. You're going to see an offense built around him with this team. You already have weapons. You have Breece Hall. You have Garrett Wilson. You're going to have some weapons for him. I love to see him actually with a team and with a plan and have him in the right situation, because speak about whatever you want about Chicago, I didn't think that was the right fit for him. I didn't think they built the offense around him when he was there. And you saw what they did in Pittsburgh for the first couple of weeks last year. I'm excited for this pick. It's like you're getting a free draft pick, first round pick for nothing. You didn't have to spend any draft capital whatsoever. You're keeping everything. You still have the number 7 pick.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to build this team, fix some of the holes that are there, and really hit the ground running starting in the fall.
Yeah, it was a great move. And Uncle Ted, you texted our group chat today, and the first thing I said was great move. And it really was. And it's really amazing because we could have done a whole show on the NFL signings today. Right? Darnold to the Seahawks, Geno to the Raiders, which, by the way, what a deal for the Seahawks. A third-round pick for Geno Smith?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what the hell. I don't know what the Raiders were thinking, but God bless. It happened, and I think the Raiders are nuts for doing that. But with that said, as far as the Jets, well, getting Justin Fields was, like I said, it was a great move, and I love everything about it. First of all, the contract, which is important, 2 years. I think it was what, $30 million guaranteed, right?
Guaranteed, yeah.
I mean, guaranteed, and $40 million technically, right?
Correct.
That is the definition of low risk and high reward. And when I say high reward, it's not because I think Justin Fields is great. I still think the verdict, it remains to be seen. There's still something there possibly. But out of all the quarterbacks outside of the draft that were available, he by far has the highest ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? He's what now, 25 years old?
25.
I mean, that's basically, you know what this is, guys? It's basically your draft pick for a quarterback this year without giving up the draft pick.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a young kid who can have, it's actually even better than a draft pick if you think about it, because he's young enough to have a full career with the Jets, but there's enough NFL film to work with him to create an effective game plan around him. And Mike, I share your sentiment, what you said before. I think the Jets, first of all, they're going to be a ground and pound team.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of RPOs with Justin Fields, which is his game. I think Glenn is a very smart coach, and even though he's a defensive guy, he's watching the film as we speak. I guarantee it. I think with Breece Hall, the way the Jets are built to win, I think Justin Fields is going to be a home run. I really do.
Well,
it was a great move.
Here's also what it does. As much as I like Jackson Dart, I think some part of me likes him because there aren't many quarterbacks out there, and I really want him. But
no doubt, 100%.
Next year, listen to this list of quarterbacks that are coming out. Okay, and this is from NFL Draft Buzz. This is number one down. Arch Manning from Texas. Nico Lavalaver from Tennessee. Drew Aller from Penn State. Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Cade Klubnik from Clemson. Sam Levitt from Arizona State. Carson Beck from Georgia. I mean, they are one that I think is going to be pretty much a dark horse. Their 12th pick, Connie Riegman from Texas A&M. You're going to be able to pick maybe in the second round a quarterback that could be your franchise quarterback. So if you, like Jeff, you're right. You don't have to spend a pick on a quarterback. You can take, if I'm the Jets, because we lost Morgan Moses to New England today, I would draft an offensive tackle, and in the second round, I would see if I can take like the tight end from Miami, something like that. So I agree. I think that's the way to go. Oh, Mike, did you see, by the way, that Zach Wilson signed with the Dolphins?
No, I did not.
He signed with the Dolphins. And
watch the Jets' luck. Tua gets hurt.
I know.
Wilson comes in and makes the playoffs and knocks you guys. That would be typical. Not even. It's now the Giants' luck too. Just typical New York sports luck. Let me ask you a question, guys. Off topic. And Uncle Ted, you brought this up, so I have to ask you guys this. You mentioned Arch Manning.
Yes.
Now, hopefully, we're not having this conversation about the Giants having the first overall pick.
Oh, you're right.
But do you think? Let's just say the Giants have the first pick next year.
Yeah.
Do you think Arch Manning would want to come to the Giants and live in Eli's shadow for however long he's here? Or do you think he'd rather go to the Panthers or the Saints, well, not the Saints, his dad was there, but would he want to go to the Giants and live behind the Eli Manning shadow with that pressure?
I think he would. Because from everything I hear, he and Eli are close as uncle and nephew. And I think that he would, unlike that his uncle Peyton, who for years, I blamed Bill Parcells because when supposedly Archie Manning said, "Will you make him the number one pick for sure, and then he'll come out?" and he said, I can't guarantee that." When the actual story was Peyton wanted no part of New York, and Archie Manning said later, Peyton would not have done well in New York. He's not Eli.
Yeah. And I think Arch would want to come to the Giants because, and we won't get too much into this, it's hypothetical, but I think that he knows the fans would kind of take it easy on him a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's actually a soft landing spot because it's Eli's nephew.
Yep.
But Mike, what do you think? You think he'd want to play here or too much pressure?
I mean, I think he will certainly want to be here. I think it also depends on if you're taking first round pick and your number one overall pick is the Giants. Dable's not here. Shane's not here.
True.
You're gonna have to see who the coach is gonna be at that point because you're not gonna be able to be with a guy who's a quarterback whisperer in Shane, who really hasn't gotten a chance to pick his quarterback yet. So,
right.
I would think unless they are terrible and they end up in the first overall pick, I think Dable's going to get a shot, whether that's one of the guys this year or next year.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you trade up and try to get that number one pick at that point, because if you're all in on him and you want him to be here, you can make that pick. But if you're number one because you had the worst record in the league, chances are it's going to be a different coach and a different GM making that pick as opposed to Dable.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, guys, Najee Harris left Pittsburgh and signed with the LA Chargers.
Really?
Yeah. So that's
okay.
That's big. That
just happened?
Yeah, a few minutes ago. My thing with Pittsburgh is because as a lot of you know, I've kind of adopted them as my second team. My thing with the Steelers is they traded for DK Metcalf. Are they going to keep George Pickens, who to me is just he's such a pain in the neck. He really is.
So unlikable.
So unlikable. He's not a team player. I wonder if they're going to keep him because I can't see him playing second fiddle. Right? And DK Metcalf is so much better than him.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be a problem.
That is going to be a problem.
That's a massive problem. And I can't wait to watch it, by the way.
Yeah. Now, you bring up a good point, Ted. You said that you kind of adopted the Steelers as your second team.
There we go.
At the end of last year when the Jets were completely out of it. Do you want to share with the Steelers fans that are listening here what the Steelers record was after you declared your fandom for the Steelers last year?
Yeah, it was 1-6 down the stretch. Yeah.
Well,
Pittsburgh, let them have it.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm the mush. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm going to just do the shrug and say maybe, but
it was
numbers don't lie.
I walked out of that Pittsburgh Steelers game last year. I was there, and I was so angry. And then I had to wait a few weeks, and then I told Mike and my friend Ted, so that's it, I'm out. I'm a Steeler fan. I love the city. I love the people. I love everything about it. And at that point, Jesus reached down and he basically opened up his tunic and pissed all over the city of Pittsburgh because I started rooting for them. So yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's
all right, boys. We got to get to the helmets, I think, right? We got to expose the.
Yes.
We got a surprise for the people listening. We talked about this last week. I don't know who wants to go first, but this. I was so excited about this part of the show because I'm such a fan of uniforms and helmets and just the nostalgia of it. So yeah, we got to do our top 5. So Uncle Ted, you want to start us off?
Number 5. Although I detest them as an organization, I'm going to say the New England Patriots. The one with the Patriot guy with the tricorner hat looking like he's hiking the ball on the side of the helmet. The white helmet with the gray face mask. Number 5. Number 4, the Houston Oilers. White helmet with the oil rig and also the gray face mask, not the red face mask. Minnesota Vikings. I don't care what year won. They've all basically been the same. How do you not love a purple helmet with Viking horns on the side of it? That's genius. Genius. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. I
Yep.
mean, that's just an iconic looking helmet. I mean, it's Len Dawson and Podolak. I mean, for those of you who were not even close to being alive back then, but that's when I got indoctrinated with them. But number 1, and again, it's just a classic helmet, that gold with the SF, the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, that helmet is just, I mean, it's an incredible, the whole uniform is incredible.
Yep.
And it was hard to leave out. I left off the Packers, and I love the Packers helmet. I love the Steelers helmet. I love the 1968 Jets helmet, but those are my top 5. Mikey, what do you got for us?
So I'm kind of similar with you for a couple, but I also am a little bit younger than you, so I went with late 1980s, early 1990s helmets for most of these. Number 5, I went with the Houston Oilers. As you said, I like it with the red face mask,
the red face mask.
the Warren Moon era.
Yeah.
Just love seeing those baby blue uniforms in that Astrodome lighting.
Yeah.
Just remember seeing that back in the day, and then them moving to Tennessee and keeping it for a couple of years. I don't know why they got rid of that. I mean, I love that uniform, and they try to wear it now, and it's like, no, give it to Houston. Let the Texans wear it. That should be Houston's uniform. But that's a story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, I'm going to go with the current LA Charger powder blue lightning bolt uniform. I love that with the numbers on the side. I just think of, those teams.
It's all
that is the best throwback uniform they ever had, was when they wear that powder blue. And now that they made it permanent, I just love seeing Justin Fields in it. It's a great looking uniform and great looking helmet.
Justin Fields? What are you talking about?
I mean, not Justin Fields, Justin Herbert.
Oh, Justin Herbert.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, Berkman.
Now, so number 3.
Inside joke.
Yeah. Number 3 is the helmet that Justin Fields will be wearing in the fall. Is the current New York Jets with the jet verbiage on the side with the little plane wing.
Yeah.
I grew up with that as the team. I remember watching that on television every single week when they were terrible, when it was Ken O'Brien and Boomer Esiason as the quarterback. But that's what got me into being the Jets. I'm like, that uniform looks cool. I love the helmet. I've always wanted them to go back to that. When they went back to that 2 years ago, I was like, I couldn't have been happier. So that's my number 3. Number 2 is another classic, the Cincinnati Bengals helmet. I love the tiger stripes. It's one of the most unique helmets in the league.
Yeah.
Just the way that they have it set up, you just think of, the team and just the colors. It just feels like football. Like you're seeing that helmet, and you just think like a tough kind of football game, a little cold. The Carson Palmer and Boomer Esiason and all those guys on those teams when they made it to the Super Bowl those 2 years against the Niners. That contrast with the Niners uniform really looked awesome. But my number 1 is the LA Rams, original LA Rams helmet with the gold horn in it.
With the gold or the yellow?
The yellow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the yellow one. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Not the St. Louis Ram one.
Right.
The one they won the Super Bowl with. The one that they wore when they came back to LA. I love that helmet. When I think of NFL, I think of that helmet. I remember watching the Super Sunday VHS back in the day and seeing the Rams against the Steelers in the Rose Bowl in that Super Bowl game, and just seeing that contrast against the Steelers and the blue. That baby blue just looks awesome with that yellow. So that's my number 1.
All right.
So, Jeff, I'm happy to hear your 5 here.
So I was keeping track. I think we had 2 matches. My 5 and 4, one with you, Mike, and one with you, Uncle Ted. But I do want to give an honorable mention to the Oilers. I was going to put them on my list, but I also knew you guys were absolutely going to pick them because it's one of the coolest helmets of all time, and we never see it. And I spoke about the helmets last week. Like, the ones you don't see are the ones that you love because they reappear out of nowhere, and it's like, damn, I missed that helmet, right? So my number 5, Mike, I share your views, the Bengals. It's just a cool helmet, right? The orange and the black, the tiger stripes. Now, I'm sure you guys saw this one. The white and the black one they wear is a disaster. That can never happen, and they still do it, by the way, every year. They go from the Bengals to the zebras, right? So it's just they look like reps. But the orange and the black Bengals helmet has to be in my top 5. Almost made number 4. My number 4, Uncle Teddy, I share your views on the 49er helmet.
Yeah.
Just a classic logo, right? The gold, the red, the Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, just such great players playing with that helmet. In the terrible city of San Francisco, they have an amazing helmet, so we'll give them the helmet for sure. Number 3, got to go with the Saints. Just reflective of the city. Every time I see that helmet or even just the logo, it screams New Orleans, right? Like the Saints own that logo, and the gold, the black, Drew Brees, just everything about it is just it's a great helmet. Okay, it's a great helmet, great logo. Number 2, the Lions, a classic. The silver and the blue with the lion, just a perfect mix. Barry Sanders, just really a great helmet. And then number 1, maybe a surprise to some people, but the Green Bay Packers. Just a classic logo on a team that always has a great quarterback, reminiscent of the Brett Favre and the Aaron Rodgers days, now the ascending Jordan Love. And I like the helmets. It was so fun to do this because every time I'm looking for a helmet to put on my list, I can't help but think of the players that wore them. That's what makes the helmet great. Right. Just when you see that logo, it reminds you of players. So I have Packers, frankly, a far and away number 1 for me.
Oh, far and away.
Yeah, definitely. I love that logo.
I did. I want to make sure we get to this now because we are a little bit longer than we normally go. Jeff, you have shown so far to be extremely insightful with the UFC. And we would like you right now, today is Monday the 10th, we would like you to give us your picks for Saturday the 15th's UFC card. Now, again, we do not condone gambling in any way. Honestly, I just take pretzel goldfish or cheddar goldfish, I put them out, and then I ask Jeff after we win, how many goldfish do I get? Or if we lose, how many do I have to give up? So, Jeff, take it away.
And okay, so what we're going to do, just as a reminder, guys, for the UFC, every single card, for the most part, I'm going to give you guys parlays. And the reason why I want to do that is because we do not condone gambling money you don't have. And what's nice about a parlay is you can bet a small amount of money and win a good amount of money, right? So I'll give you guys for next week or this week coming up, the UFC 3-legged parlay. We're going to start with Waldo Cortez Acosta, minus 165 over Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and Cortez Acosta is 3-1 in his last 4 fights. So in fighting, the momentum is a real thing, and the shift is definitely going towards Cortez. Second parlay is going to be Alexander Hernandez, minus 185, beating Kurt Hollabaugh. Hernandez has 14 fights in the UFC, and he's only 32 years old. So he's young, but has a lot of experience. And Hollabaugh only has 6 fights in the UFC, and he's 38 years old. So he's long in the tooth with not a lot of experience. That's actually my layup of the week. I think Hernandez smokes him, to be honest. And then finally, we're going to do the main event. We'll do Marvin Vettori, minus 165 over Roman Dolidze. Guys, this is a great fight. And if you're a UFC fan, you need to tune into this. But Vettori has been in there with, some of the best fighters on the planet. And a lot of people don't know this, but these two already fought, and Vettori won. And the mental game is going to come into play, right? He knows he beat him. The opponent knows he lost. That's absolutely going to come into play. So give me Vettori for the main event. So just to recap, I got Waldo Cortez Acosta, Alexander Hernandez, and finally Marvin Vettori. Jeff's three-legged UFC parlay.
They sound like three guys that are in danger of having ice pick them up.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm like the biggest UFC fan on the planet, and I can't pronounce half these names sometimes. I got to go to like Google or whatever the thing on YouTube where you can look up how to pronounce. I'm like, it's amazing. But yeah, they all have crazy names.
I'm going to try to watch this week. I'm going to give it a shot. So
you'll enjoy
we'll
it.
See. Now,
yep.
My favorite spot. Mike's most pathetic picks. Mikey, you are my favorite person to give gambling tips, advice. Today you're picking winners. He's got another shirt that says "Life's too short to bet the under." This is the guy, Mikey. Who are your picks?
Okay, so the last couple of weeks we've been going just on vibes, looking at the names on the websites, and it's gone terribly wrong. So I actually did some research this week on the pick. So we're going all the way down under to Australia. The Aussie Rules Football League is starting up. Week 1 was this current week right now. I think there's a couple of games going on today, but this game is for week 2 of the Aussie League football season. I took a look at who the consensus pick is for the champion, and that is the Great Western Sydney Giants. So the Giants are actually favored to win the Aussie Rules Football Championship this year. So the pick for this week is the GWS, the Great Western Sydney Giants, minus 5.5 points or runs or whatever they use in Aussie football versus the Melbourne Demons. And that game is on Sunday the 16th, I think at about noon Eastern time, or maybe midnight. I don't know how it works down there. I think the clocks are backwards. Who knows? But that's my pick for the week. And my bonus pick is on Thursday night. I don't care what the spread is, what the numbers are. You're going to take the Manhattan Jaspers versus the Iona Gales. Money line, spread, whatever it is, take Manhattan. I think they're going to beat Iona in the MAC tournament and maybe make a run. There's no real set team in the MAC this year, so why not Manhattan this year? So those are my two picks.
All right.
Take him and leave him at this point, because if you've faded me the last couple of weeks, you've done well. You got a lot of goldfish. If you've been with me, your bag is pretty empty at this point. So
well, this has been my favorite Mikey C segment so far, because it's the first time I heard Giants favored to win in about 5 years. So.
Yep.
This was my favorite segment.
First time picking the Giants in about 5 years as well. So,
well, guys, I want to tell you one thing. One of the fans, Jonathan Pop, he loves Mikey's segment, and he sent me an 8-legged NBA parlay of Bam Adebayo with 8+ assists, Luka Doncic a triple-double, Nikolai Jokic a triple-double, Josh Giddey a double-double, Josh Hart a triple-double, and I think there's 2 more, and 3 of them I think have already happened. And
is this Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems? Is this what this is from? I don't know.
And I told him if they all come through, because honestly, I think he bet $1 on this. You know, because he's a big gambler. That's what he does. He bet $1 and to win $1,152. And I said, if they all come in, we'll give you a weekly spot on the show. So let's see what happens. John, listen, even if they don't come in, thank you so much for being a loyal listener. We really appreciate it. Guys, this was fun. It went a little bit longer because it's NFL Frenzy Day. if anything really big happens, we might have to pull up and have another quick go at it. But at this point, have a great rest of the week. Jeff, I hope you get your quarterback.
We'll see. And if they do, I will come on for sure. I'll even post something to our Instagram page too.
Ready.
And by the way, guys, you definitely should follow us on Instagram. It's Pathetic the Podcast. Very, very simple. We actually just got it going, and we're gonna post some fun stuff, some clips of us. We still have to do our combine, which we're gonna do, and we'll post it on there. So again, Pathetic the Podcast. Follow us.
Before you on death, because I stopped at what was it? Cheesesteak Louie's in Seaside Heights yesterday. One of the best cheesesteaks I've ever had. And I was going across the street and a car was coming, and I went to just sprint to get across the street, and I realized I'm not doing a 40, so I went to the jumping one. But shout out to Cheesesteak Louie's. They were great cheesesteaks. But I might be also on Facebook, right? Pathetic the Podcast?
Yes, Pathetic the Podcast on Facebook. Updates there as well. We'll post some clips and some polls. We'll have some fun with it. So Take a follow, and we'll catch everybody soon. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks. Guys, have a great week. All our listeners, have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Bye, guys.